Hi, Sylvain.
Claire, hello. It's a long time no seen.
It's very good to see you again. This series is going to be actually all about appearance. Yes, I am seeing you. I'm looking at you. I'm seeing a lovely man who I know very well. And I wonder how much of our ideas of people, the way I see you, is actually based on what I know about you. I mean, we're going to be talking about, yeah, physical appearance. We're going to be talking about beauty. We're going to be talking about ideas that we can also generate when we see somebody in front of us, and the feeling we have towards them. But at the same time, we can also be telling ourselves stories about that person. And we have a connection, we know each other. And this whole thing about appearance, I think particularly for women, but not always, a lot of men, there can be such an investment in the way we look, the way we come across, the way we're judged maybe by others, the way other people see us. It's sort of the whole body image thing, how are people perceiving me? And it's not just about our looks, it's about our voice, it's about the words we use. It's sort of everything that we put across as a human form. In many ways, it's not within our control. We can't control the accent we have, we can't control a lot about the way we look, but we have to live with it. And I suppose for some people there can become a sort of feeling of, well, this is me, and people are rejecting me, and then that can be very hurtful. It feels like it's you if somebody then doesn't like you, or there's not a connection, or they don't want to go out with you, or there's something like that. If you take your physical form to be who you are, the words you say, if you take that to be who you are, it can really hurt because it does feel as if there's being a pushing away of your entire being, which is very painful. So I thought we'd explore what actually appearances, what is appearance? What do we mean by appearance? And is there another way for us to see ourselves other than through words, other than through image? Who actually are we? So it's going to be quite a sort of philosophical conversation, quite maybe some spirituality as well. And I'm really looking forward to discussing it. So thank you for being here. And I don't know if you have any thoughts you'd like to share off the bat of what I've just said, anything you want to pick up to start the exploration with.
Okay, well, I mean, first of all, I mean, it is a really exciting and interesting subject. I mean, it might appear to start with it's just being paint on the wall, just look like it, and that's it. But I think there's so much in so many depth layers into what we appear to be. Because I think look how much controlled people are by fashion, which is actually just appear in magazine. People want to copy. So I think let's be clear about what we call the appearance. There is what I would call a thought through appearance, an image that we want to convey. Now, basically, it's about persona. I mean, depending on where you are, you want people to think certain things about you. So you do a bit of research. You read in books, in films, in magazine, on television, or on the social media, what actually people views are about what is in the looks. So that for example, it's not just you've got women with makeup, you've got your hair, you've got your eyes, you've got your shape, you've got the colors you wear, you've got the clothes you wear. Men are very much the same nowadays. I mean, they don't put makeup, but they do tend to actually follow the hair fashion, the hair on their faces, on their bodies, all that sort of thing, which has come into it. Now, I think that to start with, this appearance is the right word. I mean, we just appear. I mean, is that anything to do with who we are? Probably not. I mean, it's all to do with what other people think we should be like, or we hope they see in us something we believe they should be wanting. Because we are like a product. We wrap ourselves up like a present and to see whether people want to take it. This is very superficial in a way, but it is the way people relate, especially when they're young. It's all about that sort of attraction. A lot of it, to be fair, is about sex. It's about how we are physically attractive because we're looking for a partner for that sort of thing. And also, it applies at work, how you actually, get more authority, or how you can impose on other people. So it's a very, very superficial thing altogether, which is learned and also dictated. There again, like we talked many times before, society has got a way of telling people what it should be. So it's made into words, transferred into images. So we take our marching orders from the others. So that's one way for me of appearance, which is actually responding to the demand of society and how to get what you want in life in many ways. And then there is what you look like if you're just you. Now, if there was no constraint, no definition, that you're back to your newborn skin, now you have no idea because there aren't any words in that world. There aren't any images in that world because it's never been before. So all you can be is be. I mean, there's actually no thought in actually being anything. You're just there, and that is actually who you are. Now, having grown up from being nobody without that being troubling at all, to actually learn to become somebody that other people want to see or you believe they do, to actually now shed all the sort of rubbish, superficial, clothes and actually be you again. And so you've got that interesting aspect where, for a part of your life, you are painted by the rest of the world, and then you come to a point where you stop, and then you start emitting who you are from inside out. And what is that transformation? How does it work? And can you work on it effectively and make it better to be more, who you actually are, and see whether that actually produce some interesting results or not.
Mm, mm. Yes. I mean, I think we're not, well, we are not our physical appearance because our physical appearance changes over time. We all look very different, from decade to decade. There are shifts in our appearance. So who we are is not what we look like, obviously. And yet, so many people seem to create a sense of identity based on the appearances, based on the form. That's what we see. And as you say, that's also the message that is fed to us. It's fed to us by beauty product companies and a lot of marketing. This is what you need. This is important for you because you are a physical thing who needs all of these products and all of these substances. So we're sort of treated like we're things, we're objects, we're commodities in many ways. And as you say, that's the conditioning, that's the way that we're told we are. And over time, we may come to see that it's like a snake shedding its skin in many ways. We come to see that yes, we have a label, we've got identities people put onto us, a man, a woman, young, old, fat, thin, whatever it is that they want to say. And these things maybe a kind of a sort of it's a cloak, it's something that we carry, it's something that is part of us, but it's not us because if it was us, then it wouldn't change. We wouldn't go from being young to being old. Yet it can be so easy for us to identify with that when it's the whole of our society and the whole of our culture is based on using these words, using these labels. That is what seems to just make life up, is appearances, it's labels. So it can be really difficult to extract yourself from that illusion, I suppose, from that way of seeing life, seeing life through the eyes of, okay, it's all just appearances. It can be sometimes difficult to live as the, I mean, I'm going to say background awareness because I don't know what else to say, but living as something that actually isn't transient, living as something that feels more permanent. This is what people talk about in the spiritual circles as sort of Brahman or oneness or divine consciousness. How can that even be something that we live as when by its very nature it doesn't exist? If it's sort of the permanent thing that goes through and our appearance is the thing that changes. So I suppose I'm just highlighting the difficulty in some of this when, what you're saying is quite right. We do discover who we are as we go through life, yet at the same time there are these obstacles to that, which is the physical appearance, it's the form, and that is constantly being reinforced by others and being reinforced by society. So how is it that people can actually come back in contact with who they are beneath all of this? I mean, is that even possible?
Well, I mean, that's a good question. Because in fact, if you look at it closely, you were talking about the fact we physically, anyway, change as we go through life, and then we did a previous series about life and death, and see that actually there is something which actually in us is physical, and there's something which is awareness, for lack of a better word. So we are actually acting and traveling on two different tracks in a way. You've got the physical track and you've got the awareness track. Now, when people say you're aging, well, you can look actually at the physical track, and for some reason, aging appears to be associated with ugliness. Something you don't really want. So people don't want to get old. But from a mental point of view, awareness point of view, you can discover that you get richer as you grow up, and therefore, at a level, you're far more beautiful, because you are fuller of actually the right sort of stuff about life. Now, we know that actually if you why is it that people want to look like that's very important to me. I think that actually and I don't want to go too much in that subject for the sake of it, but I think that a lot of the problem with looks has got to do with men and women, male and females, and the fact that we are wired for reproduction. We want to have children or not. So a lot to do when we're young is about sex, attraction, sexual attraction. And in order to actually be sexually attractive, we are sold so much of what you should be look like. I mean, nowadays you can actually find on the social media the recipe for attracting people, for keeping people, for breaking up, for all that sort of thing. How you can actually achieve all those goals to get people in bed. And so that is so strong that it actually condition a large part of people's lives, because it goes on, unfortunately, forever and a day. Even when people get older, they want to keep that feeling that when they were young. Now, physiologically speaking, the sexual appetite actually doesn't last all your life. It diminishes. But for some reason, the need to be appreciated has been so ingrained when you start with that you want to carry on. And then you end up having people who really shouldn't worry about at all to be physically attractive to anyone, because that's the way life's on. The attractiveness now is about meeting people who've got some substance, who are really supporting other people in terms of having a better life, a more healthy life, more interesting life, a more life which is caring about life itself, the environment, the pollution, all that sort of thing. And we fail to go into that because we try to carry on thinking that being attractive physically is the key to happiness. And so that makes people unhappy because they can't keep it. So
Mm,
it's a paradox, of course.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, because if you take away the need for the physical attraction in order to get a relationship, well, the looks fall apart. There's actually no particular purpose of look. I mean, it doesn't mean anymore. You're really with people about living, not about looking. And then you've got a really chance, if you see it, to actually ask yourself, wow, all the energy, all the attention I invested in those looks because of the requirement of society. I mean, that took so much of my energy. now I've got all that energy available to do something far more interesting. So that's the way life will actually take you if you follow it carefully.
Mm,
I mean, that's what really what we can talk about really eventually is we can talk about the original superficial looks, and then we are going to go into no longer looks, but actually what's in depth in you, and as a human being, what you might want to actually do, and that will appear automatically, the way you behave and the way you look. I always find it interesting if you go back in time, like with the Chinese Revolution, when actually all Chinese people were dressed the same. There was only one set of clothes for everybody. I remember myself being in the army where we all dressed the same. There's some sort of really peace in actually not having to think in the morning, what can I wear to look good today? Yeah, as long as you're nice and clean and your clothes are ironed or whatever when you're in the army, that's all that it is required from you. You will not be different from your neighbor by your looks. You will only be different by your behavior and the way you treat other people. So anyway, that's the beginning of my thought on appearance.
well, you made a lot of very good points there, Sylvain, and I'm going to try and remember um, as many as I can. One of the things that struck me as you were speaking was the physical drive to attract a mate when you're younger. There's this sort of seeking that can happen, and this desire to be in a romantic relationship. And I know you and I have talked quite a lot about this. There's this idea with romantic love that another person is going to complete you. There's going to be a sense of wholeness, of coming together, of the yin and the yang, and this, finding your knight in shining armor, your princess in the tower. This, oh, finally, I found my soulmate. I found the one who's going to finally complete me. And as long as there's that drive, that sense of I need to find this other half because I feel lacking alone. I feel like I'm not complete as an individual. As long as there's still that sense of incompletion, then actually maybe the appearances are feel more important because there's a well, I've got to be attractive. I've got to attract that person, from a very needy place. I need them to come to me and rescue me. So it's very important for me to look a particular way in order for that person to come into my life. And it's not to say that the desire to have a partner, to have a mate is at all unhealthy or at all anything that we should be looking at as something that's necessarily seeking to meet a unfulfilled need. It's a very human, natural response to come together and to join communities and to procreate. That's something that's very natural. But I think I was just thinking as you were speaking that a lot of the drive, it can be sometimes that seeking to complete oneself, particularly when there's that very strong romantic attraction, almost that sort of obsessive love. I cannot live without that other person. That could be when it kind of strays into the territory that feels, and you can get very hurt because if you're investing your whole sense of self-worth in someone else's hands, I need you to make me happy, then that's quite a precarious place to be in. If you're putting that person on that pedestal, sort of suggesting that they're the one who needs to choose you, then you're putting yourself as a disadvantage because if they don't, then you feel, okay, well, that's my chance of love out of the window. Now I'm not going to be able to experience that love, that attraction. And as you rightly say, actually, attraction is so much deeper than appearance. And when we have that love for ourselves, when there's that sense of self-acceptance, we can go into the world and we can offer our services, we can be who we are, we can put things out there, we can make connections, we can enjoy life so much more because there's that deeper confidence. There's that sense of, well, actually, I don't need to prove anything. I'm not sort of looking for anyone or anything to make me complete. And ironically, that is also very attractive when there's not that desire, when there's not that seeking. That then will be probably when there's the, if a relationship or a connection is going to happen, then that will be what does attract the other person. It's they're attracted to you, they're not attracted to something in you that's sort of seeking anything. Um, so yes, I agree with you about the kind of deeper attractiveness that comes as we get older, as we know who we are a lot more, uh, and life tends to fall into place. It tends to come into a position where actually things feel more natural. You feel like you know who you are. You attract the right kind of people. You're going about your business in a more organic, maybe a more sort of peaceful, content type way. When you're younger, there can often be that need to fit in, need to belong, uh, that sort of seeking side of it. So I think yes, the sort of idea of attractiveness or attraction, that's something that plagues many people and is something that's absolutely worth looking at. Where does that come from? That need to be attractive to other people. And I don't know if you want to say anything on that before we talk
Well,
about
yes, I
something
think
else.
there is a gap here, which I'd like to talk because I think that you've explained very well the sort of attraction between sexes, for example. But I think that we can't forget today the actual physical part of sex because that's being sold to young people and older people, for that matter, as being the panacea, actually something which gives you so much joy and pleasure. So the prowess of just having sex in itself is a today part of people searching, and unfortunately, it is actually presented sold in the thing as a wonderful thing when ecstasy, and it isn't. I mean, this is just not true. But people are actually caught on that, and of course, I'm always suspicious, and that actually uh, there is a good thing behind it because people fall asleep with those ideas that they're going to find nirvana just by having sex, and they be seeking it more and more, and then therefore the way they actually present themselves, the way they behave is connected to that. Think about all the energy that people invest in just looking like something for other people. I mean, isn't that a very, very sad situation? Because the more and the longer we do something like that, the more difficult it will be to find out who we actually are. Because I'm afraid who we are is not the ecstasy in sex. It's quite the opposite. Where actually, sex is just one of those things. Even slugs do it. I mean, it's not that special, and it
Mm,
has a function. I mean, it's got two functions basically. There is procreation, but it's not what young people think about. They think about pleasure first. So it's that search for pleasure, and then you then have the fact that actually it is procreation, but then after that it's a pleasure and procreating. That's all it's about,
mm. Yeah,
and
it's
that's
funny. Yeah, sorry, you finish.
no, no, but all I say, I wanted to add that because I think that this is so everywhere today. That it is actually presented at the summer. I'm very suspicious that actually why are we so distracted by that? It's really, it feels unhealthy. There's far more to life than just that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I think it's good that you've brought up sex as a topic because it's something that actually is really worth talking about when we come to appearances and physical attraction because that's what so much of this is really all about. It's the sort of pleasure from the body. It's the hedonism. It's the let's go and have some chocolate. The let's have sex. Let's all these things that feel nice. To the body, the physical senses that can sometimes be confused, but for who we are, I think, and then we go back to form, we go back to body, we go back to actually what is it that we're experiencing here? Is it something very positive, very pleasurable? And then is that therefore who we are? Everyone's looking for a sort of nirvana state. This everyone in non-duality is looking for enlightenment. Everyone's looking for liberation. They're looking for this sense of peace, a sense of sort of ecstasy or bliss. And I'm wondering if there might be a confusion thinking, okay, well, that is a physical state. And that can be something that I have if I go and find a partner and there's that physical pleasure, is that people might get confused that that's the same thing as a sort of liberated, free place. And that could be where the addiction comes into it. And that's where the physical form and the more sort of, what would you call it, awareness, the whatever is beyond the physical form, that's where the line can get slightly blurred. People are confusing one for the other, perhaps.
Plus, of course, we can't forget talking about appearances. That I'm afraid that actually a lot of the time one's got to keep appearances, even with sex. So that actually,
Mm.
we've seen so much about all the experiences and how wonderful it is that nobody really understands it, and they try to apply it, and they are trying to find ideas about how to impress the other sex by watching movies or reading what other people say and trying to implement it. There again, it is actually copying or responding to what you've been told. It's not actually the proper intimacy where you are a human being and you discover all those things. You discover the closeness with somebody else. Because the real intimacy is not when you are, successful like a knight in shining armor for a man or for a princess like a woman. It's when you are vulnerable and where actually the most important part is actually to be with somebody who says you're absolutely fine the way you are. You don't need to make any particular effort or disguise yourself in anything. Just enjoy being you, and that's absolutely fine. And that's the best way to be, where you can really be content. So this is a way to go back to drop appearances as a cloak, as you already put it earlier on, and then start being you. And where can you be you if it's not when you are in a special, intimate relationship with someone? So if you actually get that relationship and the idea before you start is you're going to find nirvana in sex and all the rest of it, I think you're going to be disappointed. Not you, I mean anybody
Mm.
would be.
I'm
Uh,
sure. Hmm. Yes, it's definitely glamorized by the media and by society. It's sort of the ultimate goal, the love stories, all the romantic movies, everything like that. It's very much kind of it's presented as and and that's fine, that's fine. It's lovely, it's a lovely feeling, and also being in love, falling in love, all of that. Of course we want to see that represented. Of course that's something that humans are seeking. But as you're saying, actually what we're seeking is the intimacy. When we fall in love, it's that merging with somebody else, it's that looking into somebody else's eyes and seeing yourself, that sense of connection, that being at one with another person, which doesn't have to be a physical thing at all. Being one with another person is being in their company. It's making a connection. The connection isn't necessarily physical. The connection is so much more than that. To say that it's just a physical thing is to really limit the way that we see ourselves. And then we go back to the start of the video, which was actually, who are we? Are we just our physical form? Because if we are, then that's a real shame. That feels actually only there's certain amounts of times that we can be connected when we're holding someone's hand, when we're physically connected to somebody. But if we're more than that, then we're connected permanently. And I feel like this is a lot of the cause of depression and anxiety, is that people have this sense of disconnection. They feel that they're cut off from I don't know, I'm going to call it something. They feel cut off from a deeper sense of peace or connection or contentment, or being in community with others, with life. They really feel, and we go back to non-duality. We go back to this feel of being a separate self. Being a sort of egoic entity that's not part of the great connected whole, and that's a very distressing place to be sometimes, because it feels lonely. It feels cut off. And I think a lot of the work in healing ourselves and in realization is seeing that we're not alone, we're not cut off. We can never possibly be alone. It is just not possible. If we're alive, we are part of life. We are connected. And when you realize that, perhaps the seeking of physical connection loses some of its charge. It's not that you don't go in and seek it. Of course you can, but it comes, as you say, from that more intimate place. You're already connected to another person, and then the physical part of that is just an expression of that natural connection that you're feeling already. So sort of taking it back to the body, to the mind, to the sense of presence, connection, that we all are and that we all share. We're all living in this state of shared beingness. And I think that's really what people are seeking. That's really what we're looking for. We're looking for that sense of just peace, that sense of, okay, I'm part of something so much greater here. And there's a real safety or a real sense of, um, I suppose, contentment, of peace, of love. You know, love's the word that kind of comes with that feeling. So everyone's looking for love. They don't know that they already have it.
Well, I mean, and you know, it's amazing really because recently we were doing that series on life and death. And then you can recognize the cycle of life, like the song of Lion King. I mean, we see it there. You actually start on a very superficial level because that's what you inherit from the world outside you. But I think that actually you can decide whether you are going to evolve from there, grow, and understand more about life and refine the way you interact with the life and other people, with life basically. And that when you start, you mentioned about getting older, you're no longer getting older. You are getting more mature. You're getting more interesting. You're getting more interested. You're discovering more. It's getting more exciting than that early day where you were almost a victim of your own body. You actually can start, investigating and really be curious, discovering and seeing how marvelous life is. And there again, so you are walking towards an accomplishment, towards something which is up a mountain, and you see beauty from it, not the other way around. We are not actually, that's what people fear. And it's why they try to keep that early sexual urge and carry on trying to be young again. I mean, look at the terrible tragedy of women coming to menopause, and look at the men, with the middle life crisis. Same thing. It's actually when you get to the point where actually sex is being questioned as being, anything at all for that matter. How you measure who you are and how people think of you, or you actually realize that actually it's where no longer you've got to pass a stage where you've got to actually adapt. You're no longer about sex and reproduction. You're about protecting life. You're about really being the wisdom which actually can guide all the younger people. We mustn't forget that. If you see it, it's so well engineered, the whole thing. But we think that actually, we can't go to the next level because we think it's dangerous. We're going to fall somewhere. We're not falling anywhere. We're moving up.
Well, say more about that. You people, what do you think the fear is? There's a sort of we're falling somewhere. We don't want to move to the next level. What is that?
Well, it's because really, to some extent, the beginning of life is so well dealt with. I mean, the rules of the games are very clear. And because the rules of the game are based on your body needs, like that sexual drive, it's not, we don't acquire sexual drive, we're born with it. It's the way nature, looks after itself. This is the way things renew and create. So we've got those feelings whether we like it or not. The way it's marketed, the way it's used, it's a different matter, of course, but it's based on that. So we are a bit, we've got to follow what we feel like. But the carrying on, those actually urges will diminish unless one maintains that thing. It's absolutely important because people are frightened. If they don't feel that they want sex anymore, they think there's something wrong with them. Where in fact it's a normal process. You don't have to actually do that all the time. There are other things to do. So you will lose that libido, whatever people want to call it, and they think that's an illness almost. It isn't. I mean, this is a normal process. But if you want to stay young, which people want to do because they think getting old is ugly and it's illness and death and it's too terrible. So people are trying to remain young. So they're trying to actually, be the same they used to be, which physically is not possible because our bodies are actually going the other way. They are slowing down in order to function. It's no longer necessary to reproduce when you are 50 or 60 years old. This is also nature telling you, where you're young. So when people when get to a position where they think there's something wrong with them, or they think that actually if they can't carry on, it's like death. That if you're not attractive to men or women, that's the end of your life. So what do we do? Well, women try to actually look younger by surgery if necessary, by all those beauty products they try. Oh, they're so good to sell things to. Anything is going to make you feel younger, more beautiful, much better. You believe it. And then you've got men. I mean, men are going through the same thing. They suddenly, they look a bit sort of, worse for wear. But no, again, you get a sports car. They are going to go on their bicycles. They are going to a motorbike, jump of parachute, whatever, which make them feel they're still young and look at me, I can still do it. And really, it's not what life should be about. Because by doing that and realizing, and one does it, that it's not working really. Not that you would admit it necessarily to other people. You think that, oh, I'm pretty good. But the reality is, you feel in your body that it's maybe you shouldn't be doing that, that you no longer have it. So instead of actually accepting that as part of life and finding what you do instead, in how you grow and become as important, maybe far more important than you were before. Well, you despair and think that actually your life is finished. Isn't that sad?
I mean, do you feel that actually if people had a recognition of their inherent worth, if people were more aware of who they really were, there wouldn't be this clinging on to youth, to being able to physically do things with their body that they did in the past? Do you feel that that transition would be a lot smoother and a lot easier for people? There wouldn't be that fear of, well, it's a fear of death, really, isn't it? When we get older.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it is the issue, isn't it? Actually, that for some reason, we all of us, we are at risk to fail to realize there is a life after your youth. That actually, there is something really valuable and which is fascinating for yourself. That life doesn't stop because you change. The change is actually a change for the better, not a restriction, not something you're losing. You are gaining something. And unfortunately, nobody is actually talking about what you gain, because there again, you will have all the marketing, which will intervene in our society. When you get older, you say, oh, now you've got money. Now I'm going to sell you cruises. Now I'm going to, sell you wine, food, all that sort of stuff, which means you can spend your pension money, on all the rest of it. And that's the way to carry on being happy. Well, it isn't, I'm afraid. I mean, that's really the way that you stop and you wonder, what on earth am I doing here? So how we communicate, how people would discover, it's that dilemma. But I don't know the answer to that. But I can see it for myself, which is the best way to see things, really. You don't make it up. You live it yourself and realize, yes, I'm not actually telling you stories. I can show you facts. I can take you in the right direction. You can see it yourself if you're trying hard enough. Yes, it's a shame that actually there isn't a systematic, re assessment of your life, and I think that so people like you, a therapist, and I think other people who do certain things are very valuable because you've got to be there, and then you've got to actually promote the fact that you have those, particular white stone in your life, that you've got to stop there and ask for direction, maybe. Do an assessment, do a checkup on where you are as a human being, and make sure that actually you make a new start, because that's what life is. It's a new start every so often, and those are so important. Imagine you're with someone who can do it. Your relationship will grow every single time instead of recessing. Because I mean, you have people who've been together for 50 years and there's nothing less to say to each other. Okay, there's the habit, they can be there, but actually it's they're very attached maybe, but they're not gaining like being stimulated by it anymore, and that's a great shame.
Well, I think what you're pointing to is that there is so much more than what we appear to be. There is just so much more, and maybe there's something we can do at various points in our life to actually examine that for ourselves. We can take stock. We can say, well, this is who I thought I was. This is what I've achieved so far. And who am I now? Where do I want to go now? At a certain point, it's I've got my life sorted. I've got a family, maybe got a house. Well, where am I going now? You get to a certain point, and I think you mentioned the menopause, and that can be a valuable time for women who might have had children, and now there's a actually who am I when the children grow up and leave home, when that role as a mother has been fulfilled, and even if it hasn't been, what is there now? What is there for us to do? I always also think that so much of this drive is just this need to be productive, whether that's physically reproducing a child or this sense of building something, coming together, going somewhere, using the body to be productive in a certain way. When we're identified with our physical form, the body, then there is a real, okay, well, I've got to do something with this. There's a drive to go out there and to achieve. When actually is achievement quite so obvious in that way? Is it just money in the bank? Is it just having children? Is that really what achievement looks like? Is it possible for us to, as you say, take stock and reach a milestone, look at our lives and say, well, where am I going now? What would success really look like for me? What does that mean? I have a lot of people I speak to who say, I want lots of money because I want to be successful. They've equated money with success. Money is a tangible representation of success. And the work we often do is, okay, well, what do you mean by I want to be successful? What does that really feel like? What does success feel like? And it inevitably comes back to a sense of contentment and peace and strength and wellness and acceptance in oneself. That all the most successful people are the ones who truly know who they are and where they're going, and then that drive will just come. It's not about sort of going out there seeking it. It's about getting to know who you are and then waiting for it to appear naturally in front of you. And it does. It's just an extension. I mean, life will live through us. Life moves us in the direction that it wants. And if we're living in harmony with life, then how can it not be a success? What I call unsuccessful is where there's this confusion about who people are. Are they life? Are they not life? Are they disconnected? There's a kind of seeking of something that's, their parents might have said was good for them. So they're sort of pulling against maybe what feels more of a natural path, a sort of way that actually might be more in the flow, more creative sometimes. But that can feel quite frightening because we've always been told that's maybe unproductive. Artists don't make any money, for example, things like that. So we might pull against where we might be intuitively being driven based on conditioning that we've had from our parents and from society. And I suppose what's so lovely is where you can come back to just being driven, just seeing yourself as so much more than what other people see you as and what the world might see you as. Because playing that game it's just it can be exhausting if you're trying to be someone for other people. As you say, we're all invested in images to try and look a certain way for other people. Why not just feel who we are for ourselves and then just go wherever that naturally leads us? And it might be that we're pleasantly surprised.
Well, I'm sure that will be the case. I mean, what I think always, I've seen that for a long time. If you take a woman, for example, as a group, I mean, there's a time where in our lives where we shouldn't see men and women. We should all be human beings. So that's proper equality to me. You've got to lose that sex side because it doesn't mean anything anymore. But what you end up with is with people with tremendous experience. If it's not actually, forget what you do it for. I mean, a woman who's had children and who's had felt that love for children, who's actually been actually the instrument of nature in terms of creation, and having sort of lived through that, having looked after the family, having looked after the house, all the rest of it. I mean, how rich is that? So you've got a huge amount of talent. If you can free that talent from being a woman or being old or being ugly or all that stuff thing, that is just the human being. I mean, that's a huge value and a huge wisdom. So that's what you've got to take, and that's what you've got to operate with, no longer with the looks, but with the content of the person.
Yes. Yes. Being a human being, what does that really mean?
Well, it means that actually you understand what life is about and you are very interested in it. You realize the connection between what you do, what you think, you act, and the consequences, and how that in itself is actually looking after your children that you had earlier. Because after all, we are responsible for our children. We are responsible to make a world which is good for them, which should be better than what we inherited. And so far, it doesn't work that way very much. It's rather the opposite. So, this is actually what a human being is. A human being is being aware of life and being aware that actually, you look after life. Because if you are intelligent at all, the last thing you want to do is to shoot yourself in the foot or anywhere else for that matter. And then you are all to promote and support life in its forms. And especially with a very, very strong view. It's not a philosophical thing. It's actually a practical thing. It's not in the air. I mean, we know that actually we need to have a world in a particular shape to sustain life and to make life successful. And that's our children. That's the way what we say we love. So there's so much to do. If only we got to that point. I mean, look at how valuable being old is, in the world as we are today. Age, experience, and understanding of life is such a huge benefit, so much in demand. If people want to actually see it and invest in that, the second part of their lives, it will make such a huge difference.
Mm. Maybe we've got things the other way around. Actually, in some cultures, the older people are the wise elders. In our culture, it's such a shame that people who get older, they see it as an issue, and then they might start acting in a way that suggests that they don't want to be getting older. And then younger people look at them and think, oh my gosh, that if that's the idea that's being put out there, that can kind of create the culture, can't it? So I think, as you say, actually, the more wisdom you have, the more you know about life. There is such a beauty that comes in that. And yet, if we all it doesn't seem like everyone's really living as a human. If being human is about discovering and experiencing and representing being on the same side as life, if not everyone is doing that, then there can be a slightly distorted view of what an older human is when they're not actually going with the flow of things, when they're trying to cling on to their youth, when they're not really in acceptance of themselves. That is not setting a very good example. As you say, we need to set a good example to the younger generations. Actually, getting older is getting wiser. It's seeing things in a certain way. It's improving life. It's being there to guide, to support, to nurture, and that's a wonderful thing. That's something that we can all offer as part of our humanity, and that's of great value. I wonder if it was seen like that, there wouldn't be such a distinction between old and young. If it was all seen as life was just valuable at any stage and at any age, it might be something that feels a lot more harmonious and peaceful and less frightening, getting old.
And I mean, it's amazing as well, isn't it? That actually, people talk about spirituality. And then as something so high, which is entertainment. But for me, spirituality is the simplest thing you can have. Is that what you just said? Is that understanding that actually we do exist, we do have such a complete influence on the quality of life around, that we are responsible for the happiness of our children why have children in the first place if you don't want to make a world in which they can prosper and be happy themselves? I mean, this is actually condemning them to the worst possible fate before they start. So, how can anybody say they love children when they spend their life working, making nuclear weapons or polluting the air or the water, whatever? It's such a paradox living in this world, where people should really take into account it is real. It is for real, guys. Even if it appears not to be real, just play on the side of life. There's actually no reason that you should ignore that and try to destroy where you are. It doesn't make sense. And that's being spiritual is actually accept that we don't understand everything, but suddenly we understand we're here, and we certainly understand that we want to be here and we want to be in the best possible way and to shape where we are here.
We want
You
to
know,
contribute to the beauty. I mean,
of course, we are
the
part of the beauty. We are amazing. We are incredibly beautiful, and that is actually not through appearances. If that's what being me, us, we, will come eventually, hopefully, is that you actually you are beauty itself. And then you are geared to actually make life successful. We all are. There's actually no reason not to be.
yeah, I think the word beauty is quite a powerful one because everyone's, oh, I want to be beautiful, I want to be beautiful, but actually, what does that actually mean? What does when we talk about beauty, we talk about something physical a lot of the time. There's a physical appearance. It can easily become a judgment. But equally, at the same time, the word beauty can point to something that is beyond the form. It can be a representation of something that we all actually have and we all bring out. And I think we've all got the ability to bring our own beauty into the world of form, whether that's through art, through creation, through nurturing, through building something, setting something up. That is the act of beauty. It's a creative act. It's creating something in the world of form. So that's what people want, and it's absolutely what all of us can express and can have. It's not limited to anything that it might seem to be in the more narrow, restrictive definition of language.
That's right. And actually, it is beauty from inside is spontaneity. It's not something you calculate. It's not for appearance sake. It's because it comes out of you, and it's an expression.
Mm. It's something sort of is like a great artist. You think there's something you see in that artwork that has been somehow represented
Yeah.
and the same with music, something that comes into that art, something that comes into that music, and you capture an essence in that. And as you say, that is something that we all have. We've got the ability to bring that into the world through just who we are. It's the source of who we are. So we're all an expression in our own ways. And it's all individual differences. We all do it very differently, and no way is inherently better or worse than another. There are
And
just
cre
individual preferences.
and creativity is not painting or it's not sculpting or it's not, do anything like that. Being creative is doing absolutely any odd thing, but you do it
Mm.
spontaneously and it's in tune with life. That's what art
Yeah.
is really.
Yeah.
It's being us, at the best possible way.
Yes, which is beautiful.
Yes.
Well, I think that's been a really good chat. I've really enjoyed that. It's been a Yeah, it makes you think, this conversation. It makes you wonder actually who are we? What is it that we're bringing to this world? It can feel very expansive and liberating, to get in touch with this part of us, our inherent beauty, our inherent worth. That's actually the place that does connect all of us. So it's lovely to be talking to you, and it's lovely to feel that there is an audience listening, because there is that sense of a connection, which is just so much more than what we see
Yeah.
sometimes.
Creating together. What we're doing here is actually not just talking, it's not philosophy, it's actually acting. It is a proper, tangible act of creation.
Well, we never know what we're going to say, which is always So
Exactly.
I mean, it is a spontaneous conversation back and forth. There's not that racking a brain for a clever thing. Whatever comes out is what comes out, and that for me is a musical, an artistic. It's something that I feel there is inherent value in. So even just talking about this, I would say is a very beautiful is a very beautiful thing. We're putting something across here in art. This is a creation. There's this whole conversation. It's in many ways, and it's such a joy, and it's fun. It's beautiful. It's very rich and alive to be able to bring this to the world, bring this to life in a form.
So we can say to anybody listening to this, join in. We
Mm,
are all prepared to talk together. You know,
yes.
and that's the way of the world. That's what we've always done, human beings. When we were right or back in our caves, there was such a storytelling. People did talk all the time because they had amazing adventure, things that never happened before. Recounting coming across bisons or other animals and how they did it. I mean, I can imagine, people painting the walls of the cave to explain to other people what was going on. Yeah, it's always existed. You had to talk to explain and share with others, what you discovered and how you could eat better or how you could preserve some food. All that sort of thing came from discussion like this, meaningful one, because they were addressing life directly, and then they were addressing the need for protection and the need for survival in the best possible way without destroying yourself and what was around you. So it's a huge place for conversation, talking to each other, because spontaneity, as like we do, because this is actually, making life visible. So talking about being a spirit, that's where it's coming from, isn't it? It's coming from somewhere we don't know where it's coming from, but it is coming out of us. So we're giving space for life to express itself.
I think it's also about having the courage to be seen because there is something that's being put out there in the world here, and it's giving that, whatever that is, it's giving that expression, and that can be sometimes it can feel like a risk. It's a courageous thing because it's completely unknown what might be being put out there,
That's right.
but I feel we can trust it.
Yes, and it's exciting anyway. There is actually a movement taking place. There is a flow coming through. So there is a gate at the back and one at the front, and
Mm,
there's a current going through.
mm, mm. Well, if anybody has any questions or any thoughts or anything that they would like to share, then that would be
That
very
will,
gratefully received. It
yes,
will give us something to discuss in our second episode. It's all sort of unrehearsed and spontaneous, so we do bounce off contributions and ideas, so everything is welcome. Right, well, should we leave it there for today?
that will do. Thank you very much for
Okay.
your time and comments
You
and
too.
everything. It's wonderful.
You too, Sylvain. We'll see you next time.
All right,
Okay.
bye-bye.
Bye.